Hello, good day everyone. Welcome to day 9 of 30 of Real Estate Content. My name is John Olis. I'm the CEO of Red Diamond Properties Limited. And over the last few days, I've shared so much on real estate, talking about understanding real estate, some different aspects or sectors in real estate, from property brokerage to short let to yearly residential rental and also land banking. Today, I want to take a break on that and share on valid land titles in Nigeria. So you need to understand that land titles generally are documents that transfer ownership of land or property from one person to another. Or we can also say they are documents that show true ownership of land. Now you need to know that Nigeria operates like a dual land system. It's still a mixture of the Land Use Act, which is the received common, which is like common law, which is like statutory law, and we still have the customary law. Prior to 1978 in Nigeria, land was owned by locals. In the northern part of Nigeria, we had the land tenure law. So locals were the owners of land, like originally passed down from their ancestors to them. So they were the owners of land. But there were some issues in land administration, about 4 of them. And then head of state, General Olusegun Obasanjo, set up a committee to look into the issues concerning land administration, which later led to the promulgation of what we call the Land Use Decree of 1978, which is now the Land Use Act. So he administers the allocation of land in Nigeria. That is it. And there are different titles in Nigeria. And in today's live, I'm going to be sharing some of them. I won't exhaust it tomorrow. Today, I may go up to tomorrow to continue. Now, the first type of land title we have is what we call right of occupancy, popularly known as R of O. It's also called customary right of occupancy, and is provided for by Section 6 of the Land Use Act of 1978. And it is a grant of land by the local government of a state, which can be used for residential purposes, for agricultural purposes, for grazing purposes, and the likes. And the highest size of land that can be given is 5,000 hectares, except the governor of the state permits a larger allocation. So you need to understand that the first one is right of occupancy, R of O, popularly called customary right of occupancy. And another thing you need to know is that for every transfer of land to subsequent owners, the law mandates that you must get the consent of the governor. Because by Section 1 of the Land Use Act, you need to realize that the governor of the state is now the trustee of lands in the state. A trustee is somebody who holds something for the benefit of others, called the beneficiary. So by the Land Use Act, all lands in a state, generally, the governor holds it in trust for the benefit of Nigerian citizens, right? And also the local government. So for a right of occupancy, it's the local government that allocates it. So you need to know that the first kind of land title we have is what we call right of occupancy, also called statutory right of occupancy. And there are grounds upon which it can be revoked. If you've gotten an R of O, legally it can be revoked on grounds of what we call overriding public interest. Maybe the government wants to use it for mining, maybe the government wants to set pipelines and the likes. But if you get it rightly, you will be compensated. So that's the first land title I would like to talk about. The second one I would like to talk about is what I call statutory right of occupancy, which everybody knows to be as C of O, Certificate of Occupancy, and is provided for by Section 5 of the Land Use Act. It's usually granted by the governor of a state. To people, whether residential, whether commercial, whether agricultural or industrial. And when the person to whom it's granted gets it, you will get a document called Certificate of Occupancy, and that grant of land is usually for 99 years. It's usually for 99 years, granting it to the person. So under the Land Use Act, a person does not own land in perpetuity. Under the Land Use Act, we don't have what we call freehold. Freehold used to exist before, where if you own a land, you own it for eternity. But now there is a time frame which is called 99 years, and it's possible that it may be renewed after 99 years. But as at now, when you're granted a certificate of occupancy, you're given right over the land for 99 years. And also, just like for a right is customary right of occupancy, which is ROO, before you can transfer or alienate the land to another person, whether through assignment, whether through mortgage or sublease, you must get the consent of the governor. Governor's consent is so important that if you do not get it, it invalidates the transaction, and it's a ground for revocation of your certificate of occupancy. Another ground for revocation is called overriding public interest, just as for ROO. But where it is overriding public interest, you are permitted, you are open to getting compensation. But if it's without, you transfer a land, whether by mortgage, alienation, transfer without the governor's consent, there's no compensation, because that is a breach. So that's what you need to know about certificate of occupancy. And I'm just going fast, and I want to share the third one, called deed of assignment. Now, the original allotee of a land, generally, if it's getting it from a local government, gets a customary right of occupancy, which is ROO. If the person is getting it from a state government, it's called certificate of occupancy, which is also called statutory right of occupancy. That is it. Now, people want to buy land from the people who got these direct documents, right? And let's say the owner of the land who got a certificate of occupancy got it for over 20 hectares, and somebody now wants to buy maybe just 500 square meters. He can't give the new owner the certificate of occupancy. There's a document that is given which is called a deed of assignment. A deed of assignment, and is a valid title. It transfers a portion, right, of the whole property, in this instance, to the new owner. So it's showing that the rights, the obligations, the duty over a piece of land had been transferred from the owner, who is called the assigner, to the new owner, who is called the assignee. So it's transferred from the current owner who has title to the land, whether it's C of O, whether it's R of O, to a new owner, which is called the assignee. And the person enjoys the remainder of the 99 years that was originally given on the C of O. Now, so what are some of the contents of a deed of assignment? Number one, it contains the day the contract was entered into. Number two, it writes out, it states the parties to the deed of assignment. Then there's something called a recital, which comes next. It tells you about the history of the land. So you can say the land was first gotten by a right of occupancy, and gives you the details. Then it was transferred to another person, then it was transferred to another person, then it was transferred to another person. So that recital gives you a history of the land. Then the next clause, or one of the clauses you also see, is a description of the land. It also states the amount of the land. Then there are covenants in the land. When I mean covenant in the land, it's not just related to a land but property. These are the clauses, the terms, and the conditions. Then we also have who we call the witnesses. And there's a place called, a section called for the governor's consent. Once you get a deed of assignment, you have a duty to go and register it in the land registry. And once that is done, it becomes a valid land title. And it gives you superiority over others who might not have registered theirs, and it confers legal estate on you. It gives you priority over others. So that's what you need to know about a deed of assignment. Quickly, let me go to the fourth one, which is Land Excision Gazette. Now recall, when I started, I stated that prior to the 1978 Land Use Act, land was held by the locals, the indigenes of a place. And Some now came under the ownership of the state governor, under the trusteeship rather of the state governor, who holds it in trust for people who need it. Now, there are instances in which the locals who own that land before want a portion back and ask for a portion back. The document that is used for that is what we call Land Acquisition Gazette. Land Acquisition Gazette. So it is simply showing that a portion of the land that belonged to the locals, which now came under the trusteeship of the state governor, has been released back to them. And the document that encapsulates that release is called a Land Acquisition Gazette. So you need to know that that is also a very valid land title. And the last but not the least one I want to talk about today is called a deed of gift. As the name implies, it is a property. It's a document that shows the transfer of a property done without payment, free of charge, from one person called the donor, that is the person giving it, to the receiver of the gift called the donee. So that is what a deed of gift is. It's the document that encapsulates that transfer. And the deed of gift will contain the name of the donor, the donee. It will state the intention of the donor, stating that they transfer the land or property free without any coercion. It will also tell you details about the land, right? And it's a very good one. But you need to know that a deed of gift can be revoked. Where can it be revoked? If it can be shown that the person who gave the gift gave it under duress, under undue influence, under a mistake, it can be revoked, because it's free of charge. So there's a high possibility of fraud. So once it can be proved that it was not just given by the free will of the donor, it can be revoked. Or also it can be revoked if the transfer of land is done in order to evade tax. In order to evade tax. So these are some of the valid land titles in Nigeria that are used in the real estate sector that regulate real estate, and any of them is valid. Tomorrow, by God's grace, I'm going to share 5 more that you need to know that regulate land transactions in Nigeria. Remember, the first one I said is a right of occupancy, also called customary right of occupancy. Then the second one I said that is done by local government, the local government allocating land to people for residential, for agricultural purposes, and the highest amount that can be given is 5,000 hectares, except the governor states otherwise. And the next one is certificate of occupancy, also called statutory right of occupancy, and is given by state governor to people who apply. And the third one I said is a deed of assignment, which transfers a land from or property from its original allottee to another person, and it is premised on the fact that you cannot give a C of O to everybody on your land. So you have a global C of O. Then people are now buying maybe portions. The deed of assignment you give to them. Then the fourth one I said is the Land Acquisition Gazette. Original owners of land, by a document, the governor or the government transfers a portion of the land back to them. And the last but not the least I stated today is a deed of gift, which is a document showing transfer of land from its owner to another person, done free of charge. So it's very important to understand this legal aspect. Meet a lawyer for legal advice before you go into any real estate transactions, because the cost you incur in paying for a lawyer's fees is way less than the cost you incur if you miss it. So it's very important to understand this legal knowledge. Now, this does not constitute legal advice, it's just free educational training. But if you need legal advice, reach out to a lawyer to advise you to do your search or due diligence before you do any legal or land transaction. My name is John Olis, and I'm the CEO of Rare Diamond Properties Limited. We're a property development company. And recently we launched our first estate in Kochiyako Extension, Kuje, Abuja. And it's an opportunity for you to key into real estate if you are just starting up, or even if you're already in real estate. It's an opportunity for you to expand your real estate portfolio. You can get a 200 square meter land on which you can build a 3-bedroom terrace duplex, which goes for 1.5 million, or a 300 square meter land which goes for 2.2 million. You can build a 4-bedroom semi-detached duplex, on a 400 square meter land going for 3 million, you can build a 5-bedroom fully detached duplex. And on a 1,000 square meter land, you can build what we call blocks of flats, 6 units, consisting of 2 units each of 1, 2, 3 bedroom, and it goes for 7 million. So you can contact us on +234 813 799 0792, +234 813 799 0792. Thank you so very much for joining me today on today's Facebook Live. For those of you who could not join today, I will be uploading the video to my YouTube channel, John Olisa, so you can go there and watch the video, learn, comment when you want to. Thank you so very much for joining me in today's live session, and have a good night. Bye.